This is VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. The New York Times is reporting that Russian troops have seized the strategically important city of Kherson in southern Ukraine. The Times cited Kherson Mayor Igor Kolikayev as saying the Ukrainian army had retreated and that the city is now surrounded by Russian troops. The mayor also told reporters that about 10 armed Russian officers, including the Russian commander, had entered City Hall and were taking administrative control. If this information is confirmed, it would make Kherson the first Ukrainian city taken by Russian forces. Kherson is situated on an inlet from the Black Sea and has a population of nearly 300,000. Meanwhile, explosions struck the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, and Russian troops continued to lay siege to Kharkiv in the east. The United Nations Human Rights Office on Wednesday said it confirmed 227 civilians had been killed and 525 injured in Ukraine during the conflict through midnight on March the 1st. It said most of the casualties were caused by the use of explosive weapons with a wide impact area, including shelling and airstrikes. The UN assessment came a week after the conflict started. The Human Rights Office said it believed the true toll is considerably higher due to reporting delays in areas where intensive hostilities have taken place. New satellite images appear to indicate Iran likely suffered another failed launch of a satellite-carrying rocket in recent days as the nation attempts to reinvigorate a program criticized by the West and as Tehran faces last-minute negotiations with world powers to save its tattered nuclear deal. Those negotiations are taking place in Vienna. From Washington, you're listening to VOA News. The U.S. Justice Department says it will crack down on Russian oligarchs and anyone else who violates the sweeping sanctions imposed by the Biden administration in response to the war against Ukraine. In a statement, Attorney General Merrick Garland announced Wednesday the creation of Task Force Klepto-Capture. It's a team of federal agents and prosecutors responsible for investigating and prosecuting any violations of new or future sanctions. That includes seizing the assets belonging to oligarchs and others who violate the sanctions and thwarting any efforts to use cryptocurrency to get around them. Garland said in a statement the Justice Department will leave no stone unturned in investigating and prosecuting, in his words, those whose criminal acts enable the Russian government to continue this unjust war. Opening statements were heard for the case of the first person tried for assault during last year's riot at the U.S. Capitol building. The AP's Ed Donahue has more.
Prosecutor Jeffrey Nestler told the jury Guy Reffitt lit the match that started the fire on January 6th of last year, saying he drove from Texas to Washington armed with guns, intending to storm the Capitol and try to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden's presidential victory. Reffitt's attorney, William Welch, told the jury the Justice Department's case is based on a lot of hype and a rush to judgment against a man prone to bragging, exaggerating, and ranting. The prosecutor says Reffitt's own words and actions were captured on video and shows he had a leadership role in the riot. A verdict in Reffitt's trial could have an enormous impact on hundreds of other riot cases. Ed Donahue, Washington.
The U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee announced on Wednesday that confirmation hearings for Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson will begin March 21st and end March 24th. If approved by the Senate, Jackson, who is currently a federal appellate judge, will make history as the first black woman to sit in the country's top court. During the 2020 presidential campaign, U.S. President Joe Biden promised to nominate an African-American woman to the highest court. Jackson, a liberal whose nomination is supported by progressive groups, would replace another liberal, Justice Stephen Breyer, who intends to retire at the end of the current Supreme Court term, and that usually ends in June. The latest figures from the World Health Organization show the number of new COVID-19 cases reported globally dropped by 16% last week, making a month-long decline in COVID-19 infections. In its weekly report on the pandemic Tuesday, the WHO also said that deaths fell by 10%. You can follow all the stories we're covering at our website, voanews.com. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton, VOA News.